Well, welcome everyone. My name is Michelina DiSibio. I'm a certified holistic health coach. I'm an author, and I'm very blessed to be partnered with a company called the Juice Plus Company. We're a whole food, nutrition, and lifestyle company. And I'm absolutely delighted and honored tonight to have Henrietta Szutorisz with us. She is a PhD. She's a neuroscientist. She is brilliant. She is the CEO and founder of Objective Recovery, which we'll share a little bit more about in just a moment. And as you know, the title of tonight's call is Optimizing Your Mental Health. Optimizing your mental health with the power of nutrition. And so, Henrietta, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you because I've seen what you're sharing tonight, your information. It's absolutely invaluable, and I hope that our guests get a lot of value from what you're gonna teach us tonight. So take it away.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so I think it's working, right? You can see it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Michelina, for the nice introduction. I am very happy to be here talking about topics that are not only central to my scientific interest, but also to my heart and personal life experiences, as you will see. I am a biomedical scientist with over 20 years of professional experience. I have a long history of academic research in different areas of biology, including virology, cancer research, stem cell research, development, and most recently, neuro and behavioral science. Most of my entrepreneurial pursuits have also been driven by science and technology, such as biotechnology, behavioral research technology, and recently digital technologies applied to healthcare. This year, I founded a new company called Objective Recovery, which we are still developing. It is a digital platform that will help people find the best personalized solutions to addictions, substance use disorders. This is also my main specialty, in part inspired by my own life experiences. I experienced an eating disorder in my teens and early 20s, and later on a quite serious substance use disorder. And I'm very happy to say that I successfully recovered from all of this. And now I put my focus on helping others, not only with knowledge and consulting, but also with practical tools to optimize mental health. So let me start my presentation with giving you just a very brief picture about the state of mental health. So I will show you just two examples. This is about depression, and you can see the progression of depression during the bit over past decade and how much it has been increasing. And it is especially prevalent in younger people, younger generation, but it's also in adults and older people. And you can see it stops at 2020 when the pandemic started, but this situation is not getting any better since then, unfortunately. This other example focuses on substance use disorders, addictions, and death due to that. And you can see a very similar picture. It's actually the reality is even worse, especially with addiction, since these types of statistics and graphs usually are based on self-reports. And as probably most of you know, there is still, unfortunately, a lot of stigma and secrecy associated with mental health. So we don't know about a lot of these cases, a lot of these problems in the world, I would say. So this is in the US, but it's very similar worldwide. So in some countries, some socioeconomic groups, it's worse or better, depending on the situation. But it's again, it's not getting any better. It's getting in many ways, in different ways. It has been getting worse in the past 2 years even. So why we have this so-called mental health crisis? There are several reasons. I think the first is this very demanding, fast-paced lifestyle that we live in the 21st century. We are kind of forced to live in this lifestyle. We don't have many choices very often. Luckily, a good thing is that it comes with increased education, access to information, and awareness. So awareness means just like today we are talking about mental health here, people are usually more knowledgeable, aware of what's going on even inside their own mind, what treatments are available, so we know more about it. And this can also increase why we report that there is more mental health problems in the world, why we are in crisis more than, let's say, 10 or 20 years ago. But the problem is that it's not very often not linked to effective solutions, even though there are many, many mental health treatments available. People often don't know how to choose from them as well. There have also been different challenges in the past few years, the pandemic, different uncertainties, economic uncertainties, unemployment, many stressors, global stressors like the war situation, personal stresses, and so on. Many of these also triggered a higher level of isolation, especially the pandemic. And it comes with the availability of social media, and now with new artificial intelligence tools. So everything tends to focus more and more on the virtual world. And we are getting a bit disconnected from the very well-known biologically imprinted reality, human reality. And this is not always easy to manage. So basically what it means is that biologically our bodies are not able to keep up with this fast-paced progress of technology and so on. Also, people, due to these technologies, the availability of these, people often want to succeed, use these effectively. We want to succeed fast, but it doesn't always come with a lot of success, and it can lead to very destructive habits as well, because we still don't know how these new tools will work best, and so it will be a lot of tinkering in the coming decades, in my opinion. And also, if there are bad habits, many of the habits can easily turn into addictions. So we will talk about this more. So when we talk about mental health and mental health problems, obviously then the first question that comes to mind is how we can change these conditions. But everyone who has ever experienced any mental health challenges knows that it's very, very hard to change. And so why is it hard? It is very often related to how habits work in the brain and the body and in our experience and perception. And this cycle is probably very familiar for most of you. So it basically shows how we say that we are creatures of habits. So this shows exactly that. The habits can be everything, both healthy habits, self-improvement, good self-care habits, but also negative, destructive habits. And very often when we want to change this cycle or break free of this cycle, we try to apply just simply mental tools. So for example, everyone has heard probably about tools like mindfulness, meditation, things like that, psychotherapy, counseling, and these types of treatments. So this means that we are trying to change behavior and feelings, emotions with behavior, and this can be incredibly hard. So this is what it says here. It's basically challenging to change habits solely focusing on behavior and feelings. But so why? It is because habits and these lifestyles and conditions and emotions are actually regulated and rooted very deeply in our physiology, in our body. And so starting with the brain, this is just a very simple picture of a brain with don't want to teach you very sophisticated neuroscience tonight, just to mention a few important things here when we talk about habits and lifestyle. So there are different brain areas, and these brain areas functionally interact with each other via different chemicals, neurotransmitter systems, and so on. So three of those are shown here. One of them is called a striatum. It's based on its appearance, striated appearance when we look at the brain anatomically, and this is involved in the regulation of how we process rewards and motivation and habit formation. Amygdala is an almond-shaped structure in the brain, and this is also a quite well known, often in popular knowledge, that it's involved in the regulation and processing of emotions. And there is also the prefrontal cortex, the structure just behind the forehead, which has a so-called higher order functions. It's involved in the processing of conscious decisions. So when we want to regulate a behavior, let's say inhibit a behavior or do something even when we don't want to do it. So what is very important here is that this circuitry, this network has developed, it doesn't develop to torture us when we develop bad lifestyles or when we experience emotional challenges. It originally developed biologically, evolutionary for a very good reason. And the reason is to help us get easily into habits such as proper eating, like eating regularly, reproduction, and things like that. So these behaviors are also motivated by emotions and rewards. And so what happens is that bad habits also take advantage of the presence, the existence of this system, and they can kind of hijack these systems. And it is very important to emphasize that part of this, at least part, not all of it, but part of it is functions unconsciously. So we are not always aware of what's going on, why we have the feelings that we have, why we do the behaviors, why we have the motivations that we have. And this also serves a very important evolutionary function, biological function. Just think about, for example, that when we need to eat, it's almost unconscious that we have hunger and then we go and seek food and eat, and it's not something that we plan very, very consciously every day. And same for reproduction and other behaviors. So, but again, what can happen is that other negative lifestyle habits, such as an addiction, for example, a drug addiction or behavioral addiction, can take over these systems. And also, usually what happens is that the conscious part related to this prefrontal regulation gets also dysregulated. It's less effective. So we are less effective at inhibiting these behaviors. So this is the brain. It's still very simple for the brain, but the brain is still just a very tiny part of the whole body. And this is what you can see here as a schematic. The brain is part of a very complex system with different closely interacting subsystems. And today I will focus on two of these. The nervous system, which is composed of the brain as the central regulator, and the peripheral nervous system that regulates movement and behavior. And then on the other side, the digestive system that we use to eat and to process nutrition and food and to basically get the fuel for life. So getting more into this, zooming into this more, these two systems, nervous system and digestive system, interact very closely, very intricately. And this is also, this interaction and this regulation has been the center of many different types of research, biological research in the past decade. And it's known now that this interaction between nervous system and digestive system is very important, not only for the maintenance of bodily balance and physical health, but also mental health. So I will just mention a few examples. So for example, this interaction is involved in the processing of stress. So this so-called HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, it's not important what these words mean. It's basically detects stressful external and internal experiences and stimuli and the perception of stress. And it interacts also with the immune system, and the immune system is an essential part of this network as well. And in a good case, when we are healthy, all of this is in balance, so-called homeostasis. Part of this homeostasis is also what we now call the microbiome or microbiota. It's basically a host of live bacteria that live normally in our guts. And the composition of this microbiome is very, very individual. It's basically different for everyone. And what happens is that these interactions and these systems can get out of order on many different levels, in many different ways, chemically and physiologically. And again, lifestyle choices, what we eat, what we experience can influence these interactions and these chemical signaling pathways. So this figure shows that basically just another representation for the saying we are what we eat. And so it shows the dark side of this, that very often in more than 90% of the cases, eating disorders are associated with mental health conditions, and the other way around as well. So again, it's on the level of our experience, this is what we perceive, what we see, what we know about the world, it's also true. So it is all because of the biological regulation that I just mentioned, described in a very simplified way. So again, on the level of our experience, it's related to this habit cycle. And when we talk about eating, this emotional eating cycle, I think probably everyone has experienced some level of this, some form of this, when we, let's say, experience something negative, either internally or something bad happens. Very often we want to compensate, we want to feel better, and then food is so available, and we are so used to being exposed to it. So it's very easy to apply food to regulate, regulate, and also even escape from the stresses that we experience. When something especially unexpected happens. And this can develop into these negative habit cycles. So what drives this is also the perception of hunger, and when we talk about eating. And there are two different types of this. One is the real hunger that I call physical hunger here. This is basically the response of the body, the need of the body for food and nutrition. So everything, the regulation of this when we feel real hunger. But unfortunately, there is also something that can be called emotional hunger, that is related to this habit cycle, emotional eating cycle, when we want to compensate and escape from some negative mental state, negative experience, and we can use food to compensate, to make us feel better. And unfortunately, the types of foods that we tend to choose when we get into this cycle are usually not the healthiest types of foods. So the good news is that we can change these habits. There is basically no habit on earth that cannot be changed if we find a personally appropriate set of tools that work for us. So that's always the challenge, to find what works for us. But there are some general mechanisms and trends that can be taken advantage of. And I will go back to the brain for a bit. So why is habit change possible? And the different levels of this, just mention a few. The first one I want to mention is what we call neuroplasticity. This is again in the brain. This is roughly the ability of the nervous system to change its activity in response to internal or external stimuli, change its structure, functions, and connections. So basically how the cells interact with each other and how the different brain areas and so on interact with each other. And this is so it's called plasticity for a reason, because it's very, very flexible throughout life. It tends to be more flexible when we are young, but it's maintained into adulthood, basically until we die. And we can use this to our advantage, because it's very responsive again to experience and environment. Another level of this is on the more molecular and biochemical level is what we call epigenetics. And probably some of you have heard this term. It has been very popular in the past 20 years in the context of many different health-related conditions. A lot of research has been going on this. It's also one of my specialties. I have done a lot of research on epigenetic mechanisms myself. So this means epigenetics means epi is a Greek word, means above. Genetics, the genome. So basically mechanisms that regulate, that are associated with our DNA, with the inherited genetic material. And the role of these mechanisms is to regulate how genes and the DNA functions. What they do is, so DNA doesn't exist in the cells, in the body as a naked piece of string. It is very closely associated with many different chemicals, proteins, other chemical modifications that many different types, and the role of this is to regulate how genes function, activation, deactivation, how genes are expressed, how they are active or deactivated in different cell types, tissue types, organs, over time, throughout development, and so on. So it's all this again is very, very flexible. So it interacts with the genome. It's very malleable throughout life again, so it doesn't stop developing when we reach adulthood, and we can change this using experience. And experience itself can also change this. One thing about epigenetics that many people have heard, at least in some ways, is that early life traumas and stressors can very often lead to the development of different mental health conditions. And so the way it works is that this is something that I have studied myself as well, that they affect early in life, they affect these epigenetic mechanisms, and these changes can be very, very persistent, and some of that can be difficult to change later in life. So it's all about these epigenetic mechanisms. Now there are many interventions that can influence this externally. There are medications that target these developments of medications. Again, I was involved in some of these in the past. And so because these all this epigenetic regulation and the gene functioning of the genes determines basically how the body functions, ultimately it also relates to all the emotions and behaviors that we experience, the actions that we perform. And so here the challenge is that if we can influence this in a positive way, let's say we want to recover from a negative mental state or a mental health condition, we can strategically target some of these and use those interventions instead of just simply trying to use the willpower and mental strength for the changes. It's always easier to use this, to take advantage of these physiological organic processes. So one way that we can change this is actually food, and this also relates to the interaction of these systems. Food has been shown in many different contexts to be able to change this epigenetic regulation and the functioning of different genes. So this is really a great thing because, of course, if we don't have a good diet, if we have, let's say, an eating disorder or some kind of emotional eating with unhealthy foods, that can change these mechanisms also in a negative ways. But changing our diets to something that is healthier can also interfere this and bring us to a healthier state of mind, and easier as a result of that it can also be easier to change behaviors. So this picture also just shows how closely eating disorders or eating problems and mental health conditions such as substance use disorders, addictions can be intertwined. So very often a person who experienced one of these, they also tend to experience the other one throughout their life. So I'm a very good example for this. As I mentioned in the beginning, I had an eating disorder very early in my life, and then a substance use disorder. It's again, they tend to co-occur or develop throughout life in the same person because the biological regulation is so closely interactive. So going back to the change of, going back to actual habit change and how we can use this knowledge, these mechanisms for positive habit change and mental health improvement. So when we talk about habits, I think probably all of you are familiar with the experience of craving. And craving simply means a desire for something. And just like what I mentioned in the beginning, that this network in the brain, these molecular and cellular mechanisms are there for a good reason, to serve our survival and in a positive way. This can also be taken over by negative lifestyle habits, negative eating habits, substance use habit, and so on. And once those habits are get ingrained, it can be extremely hard to get out of it, in part because of this very strong craving. And it's probably everyone is familiar with craving for food, our favorite foods, when it's not necessarily like chocolate or something that we don't want to eat, but still do. And it can be very hard to resist, especially if it's there in front of us. And very similar for drugs. And what happens is that this network in the brain that regulates craving, and this habit is activated. And very often in response to an internal or external trigger. So again, something bad happens, we get a bad news, or even just a negative mental state, seemingly outside, without any reason, like we feel depressed, anxious, and so on. And we want to compensate, and then we feel these cravings, and then respond to these cravings with a behavior. So overeat, eat unhealthy foods, or engage in unhealthy behaviors. So this can go on and on and on. And what is very important to know about this, again, that a lot of this happens unconsciously. Those people who experience substance addictions, like myself, usually are familiar with the fact that it's so bizarre experience that when we are very motivated to change, and then something happens, and then we get this craving, and it's almost like an autopilot reaction. I experienced this myself, in spite of all this neuroscience knowledge and biological knowledge. And it's very, very hard to just say stop and not to act on it. It's again because these responses are so strong, so ingrained. So what we can do about it is that we can target the different mechanisms and influence them. We can use, there are medications that can achieve that. For example, in my case, in my early recovery from my substance use, I used a medication that target just these mechanisms, the biological pathway of craving. And it was extremely helpful, because immediately once I was on this medication, everything else, changing my lifestyle, my habits, using self-help tools became so much easier, because this malfunctioning in the brain and the body was kind of restored or fixed. But medication can have, of course, very many different side effects, and it's better to use something that does not have that. Also, medications tend to work for everyone. The good news again here is that we can use food for this, and it's very well known that proper, steady, regular nutrition can effectively alleviate cravings for example, a substance. So it's in my addiction recovery communities, most people who are early in the recovery state, usually when we talk about what to do when we have a craving, just eat something, even if it's not the healthiest food, but immediately, because it acts on this circuitry and then shuts down this craving. So it's much easier to change behavior than later on. And so what we want to do is to work with our brains, not to work against it. So again, even if it seems like we have to overcome and work against the cravings and these negative behaviors, it's very, very hard to use just simply willpower. So that's why we want to have good tools. And so this is what why we are here, in part because we are developing new tools for this. And so this meeting is a collaboration between Michelina and myself, and Objective Recovery and Juice Plus. And so the goal here is to use again food to aid recovery from substance use disorders, other addictions, and mental health problems. And so I will tell you a bit about what we do at Objective Recovery exactly. So as I mentioned, this is a digital platform that we are still developing. The goal here is to provide unbiased, personalized treatment guidance for recovery from substance use disorders. So right now it's focused on substance use, but eventually the goal is to expand it to other mental health conditions, for example, depression and so on, that is very often also associated with substance use addiction. So these different mental health disorders can be again intertwined. And so what we do here is that this platform will do is, first of all, it's an assessment. It's a behavioral or personality assessment that is very engaging. It's like an experience. We call it like a gamified experience. Gamified assessment is like a video game. And the goal of this is that people can build their own personal narratives, their goals, and share with us what they want to achieve, their backgrounds, and so on. And we use this as data to finally generate a holistic treatment plan. And this treatment plan is generated with an AI tool that we are still working on. So it's unbiased because it's not a human who gives this advice, who gives this guidance. So it's based on scientific concepts and the engagement of that person who has the problem. And so what happens is that we want to make this holistic. And so part of this, what can come out of this assessment can be that someone may have a problem with, again, eating habit. Maybe they have a problem with, let's say, alcohol, but it's also associated with poor nutrition. So they could do very well improving those parts of their life. Then we can suggest to them different interventions to improve their habits. And one of those interventions can be products. Food products, that supplements, different types of supplements. And I really love the idea of Juice Plus because this is, Michelina will share with you much more about this. So this is basically whole food that is easy to take in capsules. And what I really love about this is that it does not require a lot of conscious planning and change, actually lifestyle change. You can just take these pills and then achieve the positive effects. And they have been, there has been a lot of, over the years, many excellent scientific studies done on this that has proven that there are many clinical health benefits, both on the mental side, mostly cognitive, as far as I know, cognitive benefits. I would love to know, for example, if how taking these supplements, these foods, these whole foods can help someone, for example, with these cravings or the early stage of recovery from an addiction or other mental health disorders. So hopefully in the future, we will be able to study this together. And there are also other physical health benefits. And finally, what another, even a next level of this is growing, not just taking food in capsules, but growing our own food. And in this tower garden type of thing that is, as you can see here, this can be done both inside our home or outside. And what I really like about this, that this is an actual habit change. So it's not simply just taking pills, but it can inspire people to introduce positive lifestyle habit changes in their life on an everyday basis. So very often in addiction recovery, we say that mental health and addiction especially can make people so self-absorbed. And it can be so hard to break out of this. And these types of, it's very often recommended that we take care of someone else, something else outside of ourselves. So like a house plant or an animal and so on. So this is much more than simply a pretty house plant, just sitting around and providing beauty. So we can use this productively in nutrition. So now this is what I wanted to share today, and I will hand it over to Michelina, who will tell you more about the Juice Plus products.
Oh, thank you, Henrietta. Thank you. That was wonderful. Great information. And I really appreciate what you said earlier about the gut-brain axis, because what we know, what scientists are discovering really is that the gut is the second brain, right? There's this very strong connection between the health of the gut microbiome, and the health of the brain. And so I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes sharing a little bit more about the plant concentrates that Henrietta mentioned here. So the Juice Plus, just to give you a feel for, again, it's just an easy solution. It's a way for people to very effectively and efficiently improve their nutritional intake. And again, the idea here is that you're helping that gut microbiome to be healthier, which in turn is helping you to have better brain health. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 75 to 80% of serotonin, right, our feel-good hormone, is actually made in the gut, right?
Yeah,
so we really want to make, yeah, right. So just at a high level, what is Juice Plus? It's really simple, friends. It's think about 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries, a salad bar, and a capsule. That's really it. It's not very complicated. The foods are grown till they're vine ripened. They're picked off the vine. The entire food goes into a big machine where the whole thing is crushed and dried. We evaporate out the water and the sugar, and we're left with these beautiful rainbow of plant powders. They go into either a vegan capsule or into a chewable for children. This is just a visual of all the whole foods that are in there. And the labeling on all of this is, it's a nutrition facts label. It's food. This is not a vitamin. Like, it's not a traditional supplement that you would like, a multivitamin or something you would buy in the store. Here, you're actually getting all of the whole foods. Okay, so you could see the range here. Many of these, honestly, I've never seen a bilberry like in a store. I wouldn't even know it if I tripped over it, but you have peace of mind here knowing that you're getting these foods every single day if you're taking the capsules. And Henrietta, you've had a chance to go through the research. I know you've read some of the studies, and I appreciate the positive feedback you've given us on it. We now have about 47 clinical research studies in all areas of health, whether it's heart health, inflammatory response, cholesterol, LDL, et cetera. You can see all the different categories here. What's gotten the most attention in recent years, of course, because of COVID, is the lung function studies, and obviously the immune assisting in the immune response. And there really is, as the late Dr. Du Bois says here, there's really nothing else in the world that does what this whole food product does, with or without a prescription, that doesn't have any side effects or anything like that, because it's food. It's not a drug, right? So again, it's unique because it's a food label. It's certified by NSF, which means it's squeaky clean. There's no herbicide, pesticide, fungicide, germicide, any negative side at all in the food. It is the most researched food product in the world. It's recommended by doctors around the world. And one of the things that I'm extremely grateful for, because it's the way my family got started about 12 years ago now, is that there's a Healthy Starts for Families program that allows children now from the ages of 4 to 25, so 21 consecutive years, they'll receive a free supply of the fruit and vegetable blends with an adult sponsor. So if you as a parent or any loving adult, you have a child in your life, you can sponsor them to have a free supply. And it really does start to change the programming for the child and the taste preferences, et cetera, as they grow. This is another option if you're looking for a healthy meal replacement and really want to, again, improve that gut health. This also has some prebiotics in it. It's a complete protein shake. Some of you on this call actually have had an opportunity to taste it. I know, because I've sent you some samples. So if you don't mind dropping in the chat what you thought about the sample, I would appreciate that. But it is a vegan mix. It's got as you can see here, a variety of different plants. It's low glycemic, so if you are concerned at all about diabetes, then you just can feel comfortable that this is not going to cause a spike in your blood sugar level. It's dairy-free, it's got healthy protein, fiber, etc., and it's all plants. Everything we do is plants. And last but not least, as Henrietta mentioned, this is the ultimate habit changer. And let me tell you something, this actually was in large part the fun thing through COVID was that I had the opportunity to watch my garden grow, at home. So this tower garden is using 98% less water, 90% less space. You're growing faster and you're getting a higher yield than a traditional garden. You're not dealing with weeds because there's no dirt. It's an aeroponic system. It's working off of air, water, and nutrients. There's a little motor in the tank about this big, and it just kind of circulates the water inside the chamber on a timer. And you can see there are tower gardens in this backdrop behind me. And here's our contact information. If we can be of support or assistance to any of you in any way whatsoever, please feel free. You can, if you put your camera up to the QR codes, you'll be able to take a snapshot of our contact information. We'd be delighted to answer any questions for anybody or, assist you in making any connections that you may need to get. So just give me a moment here. I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll be happy to take any questions that anybody has.